If I was to open a school, I'd call that school Fail First, Fail Often. Being in a high school classroom for 16 years has taught me a few things. The first thing would be that high school students don't want to go to that school. They would say things to me like, Brock, that's a horrible idea. Why would I ever want to go to that school? Why would you want to perpetuate failures? And it was in that moment that I realized there is a misconception, miscorrelation, if you will, between failing and a failure. And it makes sense. We have this educational machine over here that is just winding and spitting out one path of pebbles for our students to pick up. It's insidious and it starts early. My own son came home last year in the middle of his 6th grade year, dropped his heavy backpack. Mom, there's just so much work. I don't even know if I'm going to get it done. And I watched this frustration and this anxiety build. And I said, well, honey, then take the night off. Don't do your homework. His head snapped up so fast, and he looked at me with astonishment, but okay, frankly, disgust. And he said, Mom, you know, if I don't go to school and do my homework, then I won't get good grades. And if I don't get good grades, then I won't get into a good college. And if I don't get into a good college, then I won't get a good job. He blinked back his tears. And I sat there thinking about how nicely, how naturally these words came regurgitated from his mouth. And I asked him, who fed you this lie? Because he knew it, and I knew it. It wasn't one parent. It wasn't one teacher. It wasn't one peer. It was the insidious nature of that machine. Now, fast forward to when I get them in a high school classroom, and they are tired from picking up those pebbles, and they are tired from jumping through those hoops. And they say things to me like, Brock, where's the rubric? How many points is this worth? Just give me the right answer. And in my work now, I interface quite a bit with business owners, and they're asking me questions like, okay, seriously, why can my young worker come in and I hand them a project and then they can't run and just do it? They come and check in with me 42 times to see if they're on the right path. Or why is it that I can work shoulder to shoulder with my young worker for 8 hours? They walk out the door and they text me in 4 minutes to tell me that they quit. Or worse they add, they just don't show up. Now, I'll tell you that these two things are correlated. I'm not going to tell you that the educational machine is broken and needs reform because we know that. We know that because Gallup reports a mere 44% of our high school students are actively engaged in their studies. And I'm not going to tell you that the fear of failure is linked to this perfectionistic message that we throw out through our society. We know that because teen anxiety and depression are on the rise. Did you know that 1 out of 20 teens indicate that the fear of failure is in their top 5 fears? Whew. Now, I'm here to tell you that there's hope. I'm here to tell you that there is a way to combat this, and it's by creating what I call a failure lab. I know it's not much different from fail first, fail often, but there is something wonderful about that connotation of a lab. What happens in a lab? Experimentation, explosions, cool stuff. And why is it that we only let the scientists and the researchers do this? No. We can do this in any organization, in any classroom, in any friend group around our community. And I'll tell you how you do it. You have 2 things. Number 1, a common tool, and number 2, a common language. So let's start with a common tool. The tool that I'm going to show you today comes from the work of Benjamin Bloom. He's an educational psychologist, and what he did is he went across the nation and observed how learners interact with information. And this is what he found. He said there's 6 levels. Number 1 is remembering. So if we walk through this example, I might ask you, if we read a book together, what was the name of the dog? And you would tell me, Bernard. Fantastic, you remember it. Then we're going to go into understanding. How do you know that the dog's name is really Bernard? Well, because I read in context that the owner named him after his favorite uncle. Fantastic. The next level is applying. How can you apply what you read and remembered and understood in your daily life? If you named a dog after your favorite person, what would you name that dog? And you tell me. Now, what Bloom found is that across the nation, learners interact most with information at these bottom 3 levels. This is great for students because every answer is tangible, it's touchable, it's concrete. Oh, that's right, it's right. It's not so great for a failure lab. A failure lab actually hinges on the top 3 levels, so let's talk about those. The next one is analyzing. So essentially, if we continue with that example that I gave you, this is when I would say, hey, what are the characteristics of your favorite person? And you would start to write those down. The next one is evaluating. So based on the characteristics of your favorite person, what breed of dog would be the perfect symbol to represent and carry the name of your favorite person? And the last level, creating. This means that you can take all this information that you've interacted with, transfer it, and place it over in a totally new place. If I had a cat, what characteristics would that cat need to have to be named after my favorite person? What is interesting about this tool is that it's taught to teachers, and teachers kind of use it back here to make their assessments. But the magic of this tool actually happens when you bring it out from behind the curtain and you teach it to the learners, because then they can hold themselves accountable. In the failure lab that I created in my classroom, my students knew that the bottom 3 levels was theirs. They needed to interact with it, they needed to understand it, and they needed to apply it. And if they ran into any roadblock, then they needed to consult a resource. I was a resource, Google's a resource, SparkNotes is a resource, sorry, but it's true, right? Consult any resource that you can so you can build and stand on your own foundation. When they were assessed, they knew that they were going to be assessed in the higher order thinking, in that analysis, in that evaluation, and in that creation. It's a much scarier place, but not scary if you tell them, and I expect that you're not going to get it right on the first time. So once you have this common tool in your failure lab, what you need is a common language. How many of you have taken your Myers-Briggs? Ooh, quite a few of you. Okay. How about the HBDI? A few of you. How about DISC assessment? Good. Strength finders? Good. BuzzFeed quiz that tells you which house from Hogwarts you are from. That's right, Gryffindor. Why do we seek out this information? Because we want to remember great, cool things about ourselves. We want to apply it every day once we understand it. And if you have an organization speaking the same language in your lab, then what it does is it opens up for a candid conversation about strengths and gaps. So if I walked into a failure lab or somebody and we were sitting around, we would start not with what problem we needed to solve, not with what issue we needed to discuss. No, the first conversation is about our strengths. What am I bringing to the lab? So a person might come in and say, I am a fast processor information, which means I'm running down the road and I don't even realize that I am off track until you're not with me. Verbal processor means I have to talk about it or I don't get it. Ooh, internal processors, you know this person, right? Natural synthesizer of information, it feels like this person is cherry picking ideas out of the sky and you're like, what? Yeah, great with strategy. Not so great with details. Oh, this is a fun person in the lab. It feels like they've cherry-picked all these ideas and you know that they have, but there's this gossamer thread that actually connects them that we just can't see. You know this person. For some of you people, this person drives you nuts. I'm very familiar with this person because it's me. And the last thing I would add to that conversation when I'm in that failure lab is I'm always working from a place of benign intent. I want to make the project better. I want to follow the mission of our organization, and I want to do something powerful and awesome with all you. Now that's strengths. And if everyone goes around and gives their strengths, and you have 3 of me in that lab, some would argue you have 3 too many. I would argue that for sure you have 2 too many. And 2 of us need to step back and say, we're not the right person for this lab. Fill your gap. Get the right people in. You can create this anywhere. It takes few things. Number 1, get your failure lab guru, the person who's going to find that common tool and that common language that is the right fit for your organization. Then you're going to train your staff on both the tool and the language. You're going to identify your problem so you kind of have an idea, but you're not going to start solving it until you get your team in there and start assessing your gaps. And after that, well, it's simple. Get busy failing. Blow some stuff up. Try it out. Now you might be thinking, Brock, that's great, but does it really work? It does. It really does. In the failure lab that I created with my students, they had to identify a problem in the community, global, national, local, and they had to offer a solution to it. They had to get in teams, they had to identify what their path was, and they had to do it. I had 3 campaigns that they wanted to do around the school, but they had to go to administration to get approved. And they went, and they came back, and we consulted. And they went, and they came back. And we consulted, and we did this until they got approval. And because they got approval, we had a campaign that went around our school for happiness, to choose happiness over our negative bias. We had a campaign that went around our school that promoted the importance of women equity and parity in the workforce. Because of them, they created a great project that connected American teenagers to women in the Congo who were rehabilitating from rape warfare. And they were working on their technology skills and their English skills by pen paling electronically with high school teenagers. In my failure lab, a team of students raised over 300 pairs of shoes to put on the soles of Haitian feet, still walking through diseased and murky water left from a massive, devastating earthquake years before. Imagine in your community, failure labs popping. How does that change the way that we talk to each other? How does that change our lunch dates that we go with our colleagues and with our friends? Instead of saying, hi, how are you? I'm great, fine. What if we asked, what fails got you closer to a success today? Because we're not just combating that pebbled machine. And we're not just combating that perfectionistic message. We're combating the fact that Gallup reports that only 30% of us are engaged in our workplace. So we've got to create something that gives meaning, that gives value, that makes droves and droves of people lining up to enter a building named Fail First, Fail Often. Thank you.